Hey there, Team TJ, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a little bit different of a project than what I thought I'd be doing. So I'm all dirty, that's because I'm recording this at the end of doing that project. My original intent was to take the oil pan down, replace the oil pan gasket, clean everything up real nice, put it all back together. And hopefully that would stop an oil leak that I've got going on at the bottom of my oil pan. I really couldn't find any videos on YouTube for doing that with this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, so I thought I would make a nice how-to video step-by-step to do that. What I didn't anticipate, and you'll see in the video, is that you can't actually drop the pan all the way to the ground without removing the exhaust, and I was not prepared to do that. So I'm telling you in advance, if you want to drop the pan, and you've got the 2.5 liter, you're gonna have to worry about the exhaust as well. I thought that was just an issue for the 4.0 liter. Turns out 2.5's got the same thing you're gonna have to tackle. So hang on with me as we go through this little project. You'll see where I run into some issues and how I get everything all put back together. I am able to replace the gasket even without dropping the pan. Time will tell to see if that gasket replacement is good enough to stop the leaks, or at least not have made it any worse. So please enjoy the video, like, subscribe, and let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments below. In order to remove the oil pan, you have to remove the starter in order to get to all of the bolts. So that's why I am first disconnecting the negative terminal of the battery so that I can disconnect the wiring from the starter and pull the starter off. All right, we're under the Jeep now. The oil drain plug is right here. And then the nice shiny thing right here is my starter. It looks brand new because it is. Just had it replaced. There's a whole different video on how that transpired. But there's two mounting bolts that you can see there. These are not the original bolts, so yours are probably different. They could be E12 external Torx. You may need a special socket. But two mounting bolts, and then two of these three bolts for the electrical connections come off, and the starter should come right down. Also, in order to be able to reach this mounting bolt here, you're probably going to need to remove this bolt. And again, mine is not the original factory, so yours probably looks different. So just to warn you, the starter is heavy, so be careful when you're taking it out. And also, the bolts are different lengths, so make sure you know which side of the starter the bolts go on. Next to come off is this transmission shield, and it's right here, because you have to remove that in order to get access to all of the bolts that hold the oil pan up. There's two larger bolts in the bottom. Here's one of them. And then there's two smaller bolts, one on each side, and it's up here. And you can see how much wet oil there is up along the top of where my oil pan connects, and even here along the side, which makes me pretty sure it's the gasket and not the rear main seal, because it's just a big nasty mess everywhere. So I'm gonna take these four bolts off, and then this transmission shield should come down. Okay, and it slides right up. and that gives you full access to the oil pan. So there are two different types of bolts holding up the oil pan. The majority of them are 1/4 inch 20 threads, and they use a 7/16 inch socket. Some of them are on studs and some of them are just hex heads. So I'm using a 7/16 inch deep well socket. The bolts up towards the transmission are 1/4 20 threads, and they use a 1/2 inch socket. So that's how you know the difference. They also have different torque values when you put them back in, so you need to make sure that you get the right size bolts back in the right holes and you torque them to the proper torque settings. And I'll put the torque values in the video description. And I'm gonna go around first and just break torque on all the bolts just to make sure that I can move them easily before I start totally taking everything apart. In the middle, driver's side. We are looking up between the transmission and the oil pan, and I pulled the two bolts out. They're the 1/2 inch socket bolts, and this piece is loose. It's a retainer, looks like. Want to make sure that you get that out of there and reinstall it as well. So be aware that it's there, look for it, and pull it out. So I did make a little map of where all the bolts came out and labeled which ones are the 1/2 inch socket. There's 4 of them, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. And those are going to have a different torque. So just make sure you put those in the right spot. Got all the bolts out, and some folks watching this video may have, from the very beginning, be laughing at me because I thought it would be simple. Little did I recognize that the exhaust crossover is going to prevent me from taking the pan down. So it's dropped, and I was able to get the gasket out, but you know, unless I try to actually remove the exhaust, there's really no way to get the pan out. So my hopes of making it all nice and clean are pretty much dashed. My goal now is to clean up the sealing surface, sneak the new gasket in, and just put it all back up together. Here's a look at the old gasket. I'm honestly not sure if it was broken in there or if it broke when I pulled it out, but it's completely coated in oil. So at some place along there, it's obviously been leaking. So hopefully I can get the new gasket in and tightened up, and that will help solve my problems. There are 2 spots on each side of the oil pan area that I'm going to put some RTV. One is in this, at the rear, at this really tight corner, and then the other one is up at the front where the 2 castings come together. You can see the front 2 bolts, in between them there's a gap, so I'm going to fill that gap with RTV on each side, so that way make sure there's no leaks going on between the casting joints. All right, team, let me give you an update. And you know when the video goes abruptly to an update that something happened. So I didn't realize, and I probably should have, but I didn't realize that the pan wouldn't be able to come off because the exhaust was in the way. So what I was able to do though was get the old gasket out, and it was broken, so that made it easy. There was enough drop in the pan to where I could clean the pan mating surfaces, both on the pan and on the block. There's those 4 areas that I pointed out where I added RTV to help with the seal. And then I took the new gasket, the Felpro gasket, that I'll leave a link to that in the description. I was able to get that to go on top of the pan. And so the way I did that, I didn't make a video of it because it's really hard to see, but I went from the front to the back. So I kind of folded it up, not completely, but just bent it up, and I went from front to back. And the back of the gasket has to go all the way to the bottom of the pan to go around the sump pump. So just stick your hands all the way down in the pan and slide it around and underneath the sump, and then you can get it back up on top of the pan. And then I just used a couple of bolts in the front and the back to just lift it up and get some of the bolts started. I went with the smaller bolts to just get it started, and then went and put all the bolts in loosely just to get it all seated, and then went ahead and just used the ratchet wrench to get them all hand tight, so definitely not torqued yet. When you do the 1/2-inch socket bolts on the back, don't forget you've got that little bracket piece to put on there as well. So that all went pretty straightforward. I'm gonna clean that transmission cover plate, and then I'm gonna get the torque wrench out and torque everything down, and we'll go from there. I have reinstalled that transmission guard plate. I have reinstalled the starter, made sure that the fill plug on the oil pan is tight, filled it up with oil. So the last thing to do is connect the battery back up, and then start it up and see how it goes. It's certainly been an adventure on this project. I was really not anticipating that I couldn't get the oil pan down. I wish I'd have done some homework more on that. So my lesson learned, hopefully yours. You can replace the gasket without dropping the pan all the way. So if you want to try and do that, it should be an option for you. But if you need to get the pan all the way off for some reason, looks like you're going to have to take the exhaust down, unfortunately. So this is something that I didn't uncover when I was looking at videos for doing this task. So maybe this video will help you. If I've earned a subscription, I would appreciate it. Like the video. And then, you know, we're gonna have to see how this gasket in situ replacement actually worked. So I'll try to keep you updated. Feel free to drop comments, ask questions, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.